Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are breaking down an absolutely chilling paranormal encounter submitted by a guy named Sahil. We're going to analyze the terrifying intersection of profound grief, local folklore, and the supernatural. As you'll see, we're looking at how a seemingly innocent road trip into the mountains basically devolved into a highly methodical psychological attack. We're going to kick things off with this quote from Sahil, who is our primary source here. Just think about that for a second. A lullaby. It's meant to be the ultimate symbol of safety, of parental protection. But to understand exactly how a comforting childhood memory became a trigger for absolute psychological horror for Sahil, well, we really need to look at the anatomy of this specific haunting. Because, spoiler alert, it didn't just happen randomly. So, part 1, a trip to heal. To really grasp the mechanics of this haunting, we first have to understand the emotional vulnerability of the victims. You see, hauntings, especially this kind, often require an anchor. And that anchor was a guy named Samay. Just 3 to 4 months prior to this trip, Sahil's 25-year-old friend, Samay, lost his little brother. The younger brother was killed in this tragic vehicle accident during a school trip. Samay, who used to be the life of the party, was just entirely broken by this. It's something many of us can relate to on a deeply human level, right? When grief is that fresh, it leaves you completely exposed, desperate for any sense of normalcy or connection. So his friends organized this road trip to the beautiful mountains of Manali, specifically to help him heal. Now, this underlying trauma is absolutely crucial to everything that follows. The entity they encountered didn't just target a random group of guys. It sniffed out a gaping emotional wound. Which brings us to part 2, the Rotang Pass warning. Moving on to the third day of their trip, the group plans a visit to the famous, genuinely breathtaking Rotang Pass. But right as they're leaving, they receive a dire, super specific warning from their hotel receptionist. The receptionist actually stops and explains that the very name of their destination, Rotang, literally translates to Valley of Death or Pile of Corpses in the local dialect. Yeah. According to local legend, centuries ago, anyone who wandered the pass at night was just found dead in the valley the next morning. Authorities would always blame the cold or accidents, but the locals, they knew better. They believed a phantom shadow, this illusionary entity, roamed the mountains. And because of this entity, there's a strict local rule. You have to be indoors and lock all your doors by 6 p.m. No exceptions. But Sahil and his friends, like so many tourists, completely ignore this warning. They literally laugh it off, brushing it aside as just some silly tourist myth designed to scare out-of-towners. So they head up the mountain, completely unaware of what they are walking into. Part 3, trapped in the fog. Ignoring that 6 p.m. curfew plunges them into a terrifying, claustrophobic loop. Let's map this out chronologically. After a few hours of trekking, darkness falls. By 9:15 p.m., this heavy, blinding fog sets in. We're talking practically zero visibility. They are creeping along these treacherous mountain roads at a snail's pace of 30 kilometers per hour, where one wrong turn means plunging right off a cliff. Arun is driving, using the fog lights, barely able to see the road ahead. And that, right there, is when the spatial manipulation begins. By 11 p.m., they realize they aren't just lost. They are trapped in a supernatural maze. So they pass this stone milestone that reads, Manali 28 km. Beside it, Sahil sees a man sitting in the freezing cold wearing nothing but a white dhoti. Okay, weird. But 20 minutes of driving later, they pass the exact same milestone. But here is the truly terrifying part. The 3 friends see entirely different apparitions at the exact same spot. Sahil sees the man in the dhoti again. Chirag says, "No way, I saw a little girl holding a toy." Arun, the driver, claims he saw a black horse watching them. This isn't just them being physically lost. This is a targeted psychological attack on their senses. The entity is literally probing their minds, creating bespoke illusions for each of them. And during all of this chaos, Samay just starts muttering that someone needs their help and they must stop. Part 4, the unwanted passenger. As if the spatial loop wasn't terrifying enough, passing the same milestone a third time, with no one there, by the way, the entity totally changes tactics. It isolates the most vulnerable member of the group. Arun suddenly warns the guys not to look outside because someone is keeping pace with their car. Keep in mind, the car is moving at 40 kilometers per hour, yet a 15-year-old boy is effortlessly walking beside them, not running, walking. His clothes are completely caked in mud and his face is covered in injuries. When Arun tries to speed up, the boy simply matches their speed. And this is where Samay's lingering grief becomes incredibly dangerous. Remember his younger brother who died in a vehicle accident? Well, instead of feeling fear at this impossible, muddy, injured boy matching the speed of a moving car, Samai feels compelled to help. He enters this deep, unbreakable trance, just repeating "someone needs us." Against the desperate screams of his friends, Samai starts rolling down his window. Arun tries to use the central locking system to force the window up, but it completely fails. It's dead. The entity falls back, standing in the middle of the road, waving at them through the rearview mirror. And Samai? Samai just smiles and waves back. Right then and there, he invited the entity in.
Part 5. The Midnight Lullaby.
Back on the road, the driver, Arun, just floors it. They finally break the loop, seeing a Manali 16 km sign, and they barely manage to escape the mountain, reaching their hotel just before 2 a.m. But fast forward to 3:30 a.m., inside the perceived safety of their room, Sahil wakes up to a stark, terrifying reality. A song is echoing in the dark room. He looks over and sees Samay standing right in front of the mirror, singing this popular, innocent childhood lullaby to himself, Chanda hai tu, mera suraj hai tu, which translates to, "You are my moon, you are my sun." The contrast here is pure horror. You have this sweet, innocent lullaby being sung, but Sahil, Arun, and Chirag are watching in terror. As they see Samay's reflection, his eyes are blood red. There are visible, physical choke marks appearing on his neck, almost as if invisible hands are strangling him from both sides. And plastered on his face is this deeply unsettling, unnatural, childlike smile. His body is actively fighting an invisible force, and his friends are just too paralyzed by fear to even touch him. Suddenly, the singing stops. Samay turns his terrifying gaze from the mirror to his friends, and with the innocent giggle of a child, he delivers this exact line. "If I knock on your window at night, you will open it and help me, right?" The second he finishes saying it, his body just gives out and he faints. This chilling line confirmed their absolute worst fears. The injured boy from the foggy road didn't just stay on the mountain. He hitched a ride right inside Samay's mind. Part 6. Breaking the Curse. The next morning, desperate for a cure and realizing just how out of their depth they are, the friends take Samay to a local pundit, a traditional priest and healer. The pundit takes one look at Samay and immediately identifies the trap. He explains the concept of supernatural mimicry. You see, the dark entity on the mountain sensed Samay's unresolved trauma over his dead brother. So, it deliberately took the form of an injured boy, mimicking the essence of the tragic accident that killed Samay's brother, specifically to bypass Samay's natural fear response. It literally exploited his grief to trick him into voluntarily lowering his psychological defenses and rolling down that window. So the pundit methodically breaks the curse through these local traditional steps. After identifying the mimicry, he begins with Nazar Utarna, which is the removal of the evil eye. This is followed by Jod Puk, a really rigorous traditional cleansing ritual involving mantras. This energetic purging causes a massive violent physical reaction. The whole ritual culminates with Samay violently vomiting, expelling this thick, black, unnatural liquid, the literal physical manifestation of the dark entity being forced out of his system. And that brings us to the aftermath. Following the ritual, Samay completely recovered physically. He returned to normal. But the psychological scars, they remain deeply embedded in Sahil, who actually submitted this source to us. A month later, Sahil still suffers from vivid nightmares of his friend standing in the dark, singing that twisted lullaby. It leaves us with this final, provocative thought about the invisible baggage we all carry. If an entity can perfectly mimic our deepest grief to trick its way into our lives, when we venture out of the valley of death, what truly follows us home?